So now you're ready for your first assessment in Module 3. M3A1 is the self-portrait assignment, and this is where you are starting to bring together and classify the results from all the different assessments you've taken in this class so far. So let's just take a look at those directions, take a look at some examples, and help you get organized for this assignment because there are several parts to it. So the goal of this assignment is for you to create a think link or a mind map, some sort of visual representation that synthesizes all of the information that you've collected so far, all of the self-knowledge that you've collected so far. We've broken that down into 8 steps, and you can see those here. So my advice is that you create a system for organizing yourself and making sure that you've completed each of these different assessments and you're including all of them. So ultimately, what this is going to look like is something like this. This is just one snapshot from a couple of different sections of the assessment. But ultimately, you will be creating a think link that includes the assessment results and provides some explanations and definition for those assessment results, so that if you were out there and you were marketing yourself to a future employer or a scholarship, you could use these words to describe and explain this as one of your strengths. So this assignment has you go back to some earlier modules. Now, the Successful Intelligence Assessment and the Emotional Intelligence Assessment were assessments that you completed in Module 1. So first, you'll have to dig back to your notes and perhaps your schedule of activities where you made your notations, and go back and find where you recorded the results from your Successful Intelligence Assessment. This was M1S5, again from the study activities, and then also the results from the Emotional Intelligence Assessment. Again, this was M1S6, also from Module 1, because you'll need the results from those assessments for this assignment. Again, we're coming back to our results from values. You'll see there's a theme. We always use everything that we start. And this was from the recent module M2 study activity 2. You used this in your written work for that module. So this should be easy and familiar to locate. The rest of these came from the study activities. Specifically outlined in the Module 3 study activities and on the schedule of activities. The only thing that wasn't specifically outlined but is included in your reading of Chapter 4 is a review of the chart key 4.4 on page 90 of teaching styles. So a review of this chart will allow you to assess which of the teaching styles that you like best. Large group discussion, small group discussion, you can review and identify those. So once you've located the results for each of these different assessments, and remember you're going to, number 8, you'll want 8 different results, you're ready to begin the assignment. So let's take a look at what that will look like. Down here you'll see some of the tools that you are able to use. Microsoft Office using some of the smart art graphics is more than acceptable. Kaggle seems to be the go-to for students these days just because you can download a PDF for free. Pictochart gives a different representation. It's less of a mind map and more an infographic. And then there also is another website, MindMeister, which goes back and forth with having students pay. So you may or may want to explore that one as well. Now, if you have to, you can draw by hand, but just know that if you're drawing by hand, you will be judged on the aesthetic quality, the clearness of what you're drawing and of your what you're writing. So once you're ready, you'll go to Module 3 and click on Module 3 Assessments. And then here you will see the instructions that I just had for you there. Now you can download a sample of some of the different sections. You'll notice here that I didn't give you a comprehensive. I pulled from prior students' work. What you'll see on these samples is an excellent amount of detail that's used to describe students' preferences across each of the different assessment results. So here you can see this student, instead of simply listing environmental and psychological, either as analytic, global, or reflective, they use some description there to define those terms. Additionally, here we can see from the multiple intelligences, they used a description and explanation. This is from one of the charts in the textbook, again, to explain what an interpersonal intelligence means. So would somebody picking up your mind map, picking out your think link, be able to see and understand who you are through your descriptions and explanations? Here is another example from the personality spectrum. The student listed their specific scores and also defined the skills and the abilities as strengths from these learners. And here's an example of another section from emotional intelligence. This is another student who drew from some of the strengths and how they were answering questions on that assessment. And then we can see the successful intelligence again. This was from Module 1, the analytical thinking. They gave me the numbers, but most importantly, they broke this down by strengths, looking at some of their strengths or the pros, and gave explanation that way. So once you have collected all of your results, you've reviewed the example, you'll want to pull up the rubric. And here you can see how students are being scored. Consistently, in order to meet standard, you'll see the same vocabulary here, right? Evidencing both understanding of the results and completion of the study activity. So here is where you are defining, you're explaining, you're using words and phrases that are familiar with and associated with these assessments, but you're going a step further and providing that explanation, which is a habit that you want to cultivate as a college student. This would have you meet expectations in each of the different areas, as opposed to just listing some of the results without providing me with an explanation. Lastly, if you don't provide these areas, maybe you skipped this in Module 1 and you didn't want to go back and complete it, you won't get those points. Or if you include information that is arbitrary and not particularly associated with the different assessments, you won't get credit there. So this is an example using Kaggle. So let's just take a look. So I know I need my successful intelligence. We'll see how to create this. So once you log into Kaggle, you'll create a diagram and you can see how easy this is. So click here, this will be my first nod, and we'll say successful intelligence. The next is going to be emotional intelligence, and I'm just abbreviating for the sake of time. Next, we'll have our multiple pathways to learning. We can say our multiple intelligences. We have a personality spectrum. You can click it again to find another. We said we needed our BE, but I suggested that you break it down in part 1 and 2. Pick the 2 functions or the 2 elements that you identified with most. So maybe for this one, you're focusing on the psychological, and then you can do your BE2, and here maybe you're highlighting your preferences in the environmental. I asked that you review the teaching styles, and this was on page 90, and I'm forgetting one. It was the values for Module 2. And so this was either through the Barrett assessment, the website, or on page 30 of your textbook. So once you have those, you'll count, right? And you'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 8 initial nodes that matches these 8 here. So now you need to plug in your data. And again, you can add here. Again, you can add your results, your definition. You can play around, add some pictures, and play around with the fonts and the bolts, and make this your own mind map. Once you're done, you will download and save as a PDF. You want to make sure that you can find it. So I always like to open up my downloads right away. and then save them where I like to find them. I like to save everything on my desktop because it's easy to find. And then once you're ready, by now you should be used to this, you go back, you click on the title of the assignment right here. You're led to the assignment submission page. If you wanted to, you can give it another review of the rubric of the explanations. And then here you will find the file. It's on my desktop, recognizing that this was an incomplete document, right? And make sure it's submitted there. Check it against the plagiarism. Comment if you feel like it. This was fun. And then you will click submit.